Your Excellency, honorable guests, distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And for those of you living in other parts of the world, good morning and good evening. Thank you very much for joining us for the Chula Futures Literacy Week. I'm Leonard Chrysostomos Epafras from Universitas Kristen Duta Wacana and Indonesian Consortium for Religious Studies, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Allow me to moderate the present session. Since beginning on February 28, Chula Futures Literacy Week has held public lectures, a book talk, and future literacy labs. Chula Future Literacy Week is an invitation to each of us to work toward a future that is just and sustainable, reflecting on the global commons. We are joined by academics, students, civil society practitioners, local and international organizations, policymakers, and government officials to reflect on our emerging challenges and activate meaningful discussions on regional governance of sustainability with justice and dignity at its core. Today, we learn together about the future of AI and how it's connected with justice and human dignity. It is a great pleasure to me to invite Professor Soraj Hongladarom, Ajahn Soraj, Director of the Center for Science, Technology, and Society, Chulalongkorn University. Good morning, Ajahn, and thank you so much for joining us today. Let me introduce briefly Ajahn Soraj. Ajahn Soraj is a full professor in the Department of Philosophy, Chulalongkorn University. His areas of specializations are philosophy of technology, information ethics, and Immanuel Kant. His areas of competence include bioethics, applied ethics, early modern philosophy, and Buddhist philosophy. He is a recipient of numerous research grants, including from Chulalongkorn University and the National Research Council of Thailand. He published numerous articles and books. One of them worthy to mention is a book entitled The Ethics of AI and Robotics, a Buddhist Viewpoint, published in 2020. Okay, in this session, he will share with us a very interesting topic and timely, entitled AI and Futures of Humanity, Perspective from Buddhism. So, Ajahn Soraj, if I could ask you to take over the stage now.
Okay, thanks a lot, Leo. And I hope I'm audible and people can hear me. I'm amazed at the work of the people behind the scene, people at the Center for Academic Resources here at Chulalongkorn University who have done such a good and thorough job preparing for this one. Usually I teach online a lot and I'm teaching 3 courses this semester and all are online and I don't have much preparation. I just, put up Zoom and then students come in and then I just talk. So I would like to thank the university which I have worked for more than 30 years, for inviting me to give a talk on this very timely topic on AI and the future. And especially to Apiwat, my friend who has first invited me, approached me to join this event. And also Leo, of course, we have known each other for quite some time and I'm sure we'll have collaborations later on after this. And the topic is about the future and the role that AI plays in that future. And what I especially like about the title that you see on the screen, this is not my title. This is the title put forward, proposed to me by the university, and I said, okay. Is that you might notice that they put a plural form of the word future. So futures of humanity, implying, of course, that there are several futures, which is, I'm from philosophy and I teach logic. So it kind of struck me why they put up the word future in the plural form. And presumably they imagine that there could be several futures, but logically speaking, there cannot be more than one future, because when the time comes, we are not branching off anywhere. We are living in this world, and whether we like it or not, we will get stuck in this world. There will be only one actual world. And it's not like in science fiction movie where, you know, we can go back in time and change the future. However, this gives us a kind of a warning, or something that we need to think about, because when actually speaking, there's only one future, so we have to make it the best one that we can do. And when it's a future, there's a possibility. Of course, that's why they put the plural form of futures in the title. We might think of what could happen like 10 years after the present time, or 20 years from now. There are several possibilities, even though when, you know, the 20 years have come, there's only one. So it's open. The path is always open right now to chart our course for the future. And I think that's important. That's I think that's the main reason why the UNESCO and Chulalongkorn University have put up this week of future literacy. I have not heard of this term before. So we need to be literate about our future. So here's the poster for the event. You can see the name and affiliation of Dr. Leonard, Chrysostomos, Epafras, my kind moderator. And here's some information about myself. I give you my Twitter account, Sonam Sangbo, which you might want to look up. I put up quite a lot of information concerning AI and other topics in there as well. So the outline of my talk, I will continue from my earlier, you know, musing on the role of the future, and I think we can spend some time talking about why we actually need to talk about the future. And then what role does AI play in our future? Not AI's future, our human beings, the future for us human beings. And what kind of role does AI play in our future? And what we must do in order that our future, I mean, our possibility, our future, which right now exists as a possibility, could come into fruition, could come into actuality. And then I'm going to talk about a project, a fascinating project that I have the honor of being a part of, the project on incubating feminist AI, which clearly illustrates what we must do in order to envision the kind of AI that exists within our future, not AI's future. Okay. And then how insights obtained from Buddhist philosophy can help. And that is kind of the subject matter of the book that Leo has mentioned, which was already published in 2020. And then the conclusion. So let's move on. Why do we need to talk about the future? Well, before we go on, before we move on to talk about AI and AI ethics and Buddhist ethics and AI and so on, since this is a part of the Futures Literacy Week, I think our talk can contribute to the main event by, you know, spending some time to talk about why is talking about the future has assumed certain importance, so much so that the UNESCO and Chula have invested some time and effort into organizing these activities. Well, there's a teaching in Buddhism that we should not concern ourselves too much with the future. We should concern ourselves more instead on the present. The idea is to be aware of the present and to be mindful of what is happening right now, and don't worry too much about the future. There is a lot of truth in the teaching, in that teaching. However, that perhaps does not discount the need that we should think about the future in some way, one way or another. The reason is that we need to understand what kind of consequences that our current action will bring toward ourselves, toward our future selves. Probably most of us will still be living 10 or 20 or 25 years from now. And obviously, whatever we are doing or whatever decisions that we are taking right now will have consequences far into the future, and we will be among the ones who will be affected by those decisions, not to mention our descendants, our children and grandchildren. If we think of the future far into many years after that, after the present year 2022 right now, that's an obvious answer to the question why we need to talk about the future. And then it's not only pure speculation. My colleague Apiwat, he has become, in effect, a specialist in talking about the future, because several of his research projects concern about the futures. We are not talking about the futures as fortune tellers or astrologers want to tell us, because for them they could, or they might want to tell us that next year this or that will happen, 2025 this or that will happen. We are not concerned with that. We are concerned with the effects that our current action could bring, and what this is important in terms of our policies, our attitudes toward AI, is that AI is such a powerful technology, is such a transformative technology, and it is being developed at a very fast pace by laboratories all around the world, and nations are competing with one another to come up with latest developments of AI. And we are at literally at the crossroad. The future could go left or right or straight ahead or up or down. It depends on our action at the moment. That's why I think this activity where we come together to talk about our futures, as a result, has assumed a lot of importance. So I'm very interested in this plural form. So future or futures. I wish sometimes that I could have many lives. I mean, I could branch out, so to speak, and live in several alternative futures or in parallel universes. For example, the future, maybe tomorrow I could go to future number 1 or future number 2 or future number 3 and then experience uh, what are there to experience in each of these futures. We could, what all we can do, of course, is to imagine what it would be like, but the real future will become our actuality, our lived experience that we cannot but experience through our senses, and the possibilities will become like that, just possibilities. But it is not foreordained. The idea is that it's not foreordained. It's not like what the fortune tellers are telling us. So it's fascinating to talk about the futures, but we should be aware that we can talk about the futures in a more systematic way, in such a way that we have backups, we have scientific evidence, we have research findings to support our conclusion. For example, climate change. We have been talking about climate change for decades, and the effect that scientists have warned us like 2 or 3 decades ago that they would happen are actually happening right now. So we are experiencing, we are in effect living in the future that scientists like some 20 years ago, 30 years ago warned us, and we are living, we are experiencing the consequence of our actions in the past right now, and we can imagine what would happen into the future, looked at from our point of view of 2022. Okay, this sounds like a kind of a pessimistic question, but I don't want the tone of my talk. I mean, I'm not a pessimistic person at all. Those who know me or my works, we will know that I'm otherwise. I belong to the other camp. But the question has become important because right now there's a major war going on, and nobody knows what kind of results will happen. I mean, all wars are like that. Nobody can predict the outcomes of any war. There are always a lot of what to say, possibilities and insecurities in the sense of you cannot predict the outcome of any war when it's being fought in any detail. You might be able to predict, in general terms, in long term, considering the amount of resources the two sides have. But when the two sides are beginning to engage, there are a lot of possibilities that could happen. In any case, the question points toward when there's this major war right now that everybody knows about between Ukraine and Russia. This question comes up. I mean, do we really have a future when one side has a very large amount of nuclear arsenal, and the other side, even though they are not part of the conflict, I mean, they are watching the developments very carefully. So the old fear that people had after World War II or in the years following World War II of nuclear wars and things like that have come back, and the old fear of wars and people guarding themselves have kind of come back. I mean, it's very fast. The war just started just last week, and a lot of developments in the world took place just during these few days after the war broke out. So this question has kind of come to have some importance. These two political leaders. So a reference to world event, which has quite a lot to do with our musings, speculations, thinkings about the future. So when we talk about the future, this is a very crude way of dividing up the attitudes toward the future. I mean, there are the utopians and the dystopians, optimism and pessimism. I mean, neither of them is right. The truth usually is a mixture of the two, but at least it reflects our attitudes. We are not talking about what will actually happen. We talk about our attitudes toward the future. And we could be on the utopian side, and we could be among those who are on the dystopian side. And these attitudes come into play when we talk about AI as well. So to make the long story short, we need to talk about the future because we must know what we must do right now. So this has become, as I said, very important. We are at an important crossroad. So AI and our futures. As I said, there is the utopian side and there is the dystopian side. The utopian side would say, oh, AI is a panacea. AI is helping us in many, many ways. AI is relieving us from all kinds of burdens. So we don't need to toil, to work hard anymore because forgive the dog. I'm talking live from my home, and my dog is barking, but I hope she does not distract too much. I'm talking about very crude attitude toward AI and our futures. And among the utopians, they believe in the tremendous power of AI to help us in many types of activities. However, there are the dystopian, and they, in many cases, rightly have pointed out the dangers of AI. For example, they talk about AI taking away our jobs, leaving us jobless, and economic insecurities, and nothing to do, and what would happen. And many scholars, many scientists have predicted that AI could become conscious. AI could become what they call artificial general intelligence, in the sense that they understand meanings of language. They have internal representations. So all kinds of things that have distinguished us human beings from everything else in the universe. And that defining feature of humanity seems to fast become a defining feature of AI also. So among the dystopian, I mean, the fear is that AI is not only taking over our jobs, AI appears to be taking over ourselves, right? And it could become, in Nick Bostrom's words, a super intelligence. When that time comes, it's up to the AI where they want to put us. So, you know, they might want to spare us and put us in a kind of a what to call a special zones for human beings. Not as bad as concentration camps, but some kinds of land where we can live and we are left alone, and then the AIs will take care of the affair of the world by themselves. Or they might want to eliminate us altogether. That is also a possibility. So as of now, I have seen a news article saying that scientists have found that AI have started to possess some indications, some early indications of being conscious. I don't know whether that news can be verified or not, but according to many scientists, among them prominent and famous ones like Nick Bostrom, Ray Kurzweil, and so on, AI could or will replace human beings as the dominant organism in the universe or in the world some few decades from now. And that precisely is the topic we are looking at right now, AI and our future or futures, right? If we have not destroyed ourselves earlier through wars and through the nuclear bombs and so on. So right now, we are having the utopian side, and many people from the utopian side would say something like it is not probable, or it is rather unlikely. And some prominent scientists are saying this also, that AI could become fully conscious and you know, will take over our place, as I have said. More likely, AI will become like our friend and our servant, and they will continue to work with us. So, as I said earlier, it depends on us right now, our action, collective action at this very important juncture, whether this or that scenario for the future could happen. I mean, it depends on our action, whether AI could become super intelligent and put us in a zoo, or whether AI could become our ally and, you know, could continue to collaborate, to work with us far into the future. So just a picture I took from Google, you know, just to see what is happening right now. An artist's rendition of robots and AIs and what they seem to be capable of doing in the future. Leo, if I spend too much time, please let me know, because I have
please continue.
Okay,
No problem.
thank you. Yeah. So I have summed up here possible futures of AI. I have talked about AGI, artificial intelligence, and super intelligence, the kind of AI that is fully conscious. And also AI threatening our jobs. Autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles are being developed in many countries in the West, and it's only a matter of time when these vehicles will come to Thailand or Indonesia or Malaysia. So we need to think about what kind of guidelines, what kind of regulations, what kind of roles that these autonomous vehicles will play in our lives and in our societies. And of course, autonomous weapon systems, they are being developed also. And there is a debate whether these weapon systems should be allowed to have a role to play in actual combat. From what I have gathered from the war between Russia and Ukraine, there is no news about autonomous weapon systems being deployed yet. But in the future, who knows if there is a future. However, the debate is something like this. On the one hand, we should regard AI possessing lethal power or AI controlling weapon systems as something that we should ban outright. The same kind of attitude that we have currently with biological weapons and chemical weapons, because they are too dangerous. Because we do not want AI to run amok, so to speak, and to shoot at people. On the other hand, there are those who think that perhaps AI should have a kind of a rather limited role to play in controlling weapon systems, because when you look at how fast modern warplanes are flying and how fast these weapon systems are operating, it is in many cases too fast for a normal human being to adjust, even though that human being is a trained soldier. So AI could come in at this point to assist the human soldier to make their decisions, but the decision in the end must belong to the human commander. So that is kind of argument in support of a kind of a more limited role for autonomous systems. But it points out my point, right? We are right now at the juncture, and whatever decision that we make right now, we have consequences, grave, very serious consequences far into the future. And we also have AI in human resource, like when you want to hire a new candidate for a position, many companies are already doing this. When they refer to AI, they use AI to analyze the portfolios and other forms of information, and the AI comes up with a suggestion whether which candidate should be hired. So do we want our future as an employee for such and such company be decided by an AI? There's also AI in investment. So AI is being used to decide which form of investment is the best for the investor, using some kind of algorithms. So instead of human beings, AI is being used to decide our investment for us. And there's of course AI in law. AI is working as a judge in China. There are evidence and news reports coming from China, AI is used to analyze a lot of legal documents and so on and so on. And also in education, right? So these futures, I mean, some of them are, the present, point to the more and more pervasive roles that AI is playing in our lives. So, this concerns me. Will AI take over the job of philosophy professors? I don't know. I don't want it, or maybe, AI could now write in, a scientific article, and it can like present a lecture. So that is, at least for me, a kind of a direct threat. But what should we do? What must we do, right? Perhaps we can continue finding or suggesting answers to this question in the Q&A period when we move on. However, I would like to suggest that eliminating AI is not an option. And I say this because AI is too entrenched. The technology is too close to us, and many industries are relying too much already on AI, that completely, banning AI altogether is not feasible, it's not realistic. So the way that we need to do is to make sure that the kind of AI that we will live with is the kind that is kind of amenable, friendly toward us, and it's not about to just, completely destroy us as a species, or to destroy even the whole environment in which we live. So that is, I think, what we need to do. Therefore, we need a way to live with AI, which means that there need to be robust, regulation systems and systematic and enforceable and effective ways to channel its power. And this must be a global effort, coordinated by all stakeholders throughout the globe. It cannot be the prerogative of any particular country, because AI, it seems to be pervasive everywhere. Okay. Now, I'm fortunate to be a part of this network called A+ Alliance for Inclusive Algorithms. There are a group of scholars and activists and members of NGOs from all around the world, and we share this common goal in looking for the role that AI must play in order to be our ally, so to speak, and not about to be our enemy. So if you are interested in finding more information about this alliance, you can look at the website, and the URL is here on the lower part of your screen, aplusalliance.org. We have a lot of activities, and I'm raising this, talking about this to show that this is one vision for the future, and it represents an attempt among many. I mean, there are other networks. It represents an attempt among many of channeling, of putting AI to work for us at the time when it is still possible to put AI to work for us, because it is still in the process of development. So the network here focuses on a free, and as it is said on screen, free, feminist, and inclusive digital future. And you notice the word future, which accords very well with our talk today. And this is also from the same website, the FAIR Network. We believe it is necessary to contemplate new systems and new structures for AI, and for the governance of AI, and for the kind of environment or the envelope contextual structure surrounding AI, which will be necessary for the times ahead, right? Times ahead. We are talking about the future. So the project is called Incubating Feminist AI, from paper to prototype to pilot. Okay. Now, this is our goal. Power of AI must be harnessed so that it will be a force for the good, creating a more equal society. But how, right? That's the challenge that I'm honored to be a part of, how to harness, how to program, or how to do things with AI in such a way that it can become, I believe, and many of my colleagues do believe, that it is possible. It is possible for AI to become a force for the good, not like what other scholars might have said, that AI will always become our enemy. We don't think so, because AI, after all, it is right now it is just an algorithm, a piece of software, very powerful, yes, but only a piece of software. So it's still viable. It's still in the process where we can like mold it into something that is in accordance with our values and goals. So the subtitle of the talk is "How Can Buddhism Help?" It's a perspective from Buddhism, and this is from the book that Leo has kindly mentioned earlier. First of all, it provides an ethical analysis, and I don't have time to talk about the whole system of ethics in Buddhism. Only that it provides an alternative, and in some cases, better alternative than the normal Western ways of analyzing ethical problems, like Kantian theories or utilitarian theory. So it provides Buddhist philosophy provides a new way to think about AI ethics, one that focuses on excellence, on the best that AI can be. And it's not about purely about the technical aspect, but it's a combination of both the technical and the ethical aspects, so that the ethical and the technical aspects of AI become one and the same, inseparable. So the excellence is tied up with our desired values and goals. And themes like flourishing, happiness, inclusiveness, equality, and so on comprise the notions within which we understand what excellence really means in this context. So in a very short time, I'm summarizing my book, and I take this opportunity to advertise my book if you're interested. The book is published by Rowman & Littlefield, And the exact title is The Ethics of AI and Robotics, a Buddhist Viewpoint. So you might want to look that up. Okay, I come to conclusion.
Yeah.
I think I spent a lot of time. So fast conclusion, we don't have to confront with AI in the future. I mean, AI does not have to be our enemy, but we must act together now. Ways must be found to create the kind of AI that are aligned with our values. Even though AI does not think like we do, because they, after all, go by algorithms and, binary thinking and so on and so on. Their brains are made of silicon. This does not necessarily imply that they must be our enemies, right? There is no connection, no necessary connection being between the fact that AI does not think like we do and the idea that they must be our enemies. Just, no logical connection. So we must make them realize that to achieve excellence, AI must be ethical. I think what I mean here is that we need to realize, I should have edited this earlier. We need to realize that in order to achieve excellence, AI must be ethical too. So a combination of the technical and ethical aspects that I mentioned earlier, there's no separation between the two. And I think that is my last slide. So thanks very much, Leo, for your kind moderation, and stop sharing now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ajahn Soraj, for very insightful. That's, I think, it is a kind of what I call, or usually people in AI talking about virtual machine, that you need to imagine what kind of machine you want and how this machine can truly serve the purpose of humanity. I jotted down some ideas from your presentation and a lot of issues. There's a lot of ideas. And before that, I just want to know that, Don, if is there any comments or question from the Facebook, please signal to me and I can share it with Ajahn Suraj. But if there's no, then I will just continue and help me, Ajahn, to clarify many things. Yes, the idea of futures as a plural is truly intriguing. I think that's, wow, that's important possibilities. And also you speak about, you started with the Buddhist sayings about being mindful with the present and not to worry about the future. I just wonder how not to worry is truly can manifest it in, you offer several things, manifested in rigid regulation to maintain, to control and something like that. And you also mentioned about the two kinds of response, utopian and dystopian, and right action now to save our futures. And ethics means to ensure the safer futures and so on. And also, you emphasize about the eliminating IA is not an option. I think that's a very important and powerful statement you made. But we need to tweak our present regulation and manage its power. Again, thank you very much for introducing A+, Alliance for Inclusive Algorithms. And important underline is the algorithms. I think algorithm is the heart, the core of the issue we are dealing with, not the manifestation, technological manifestation, but the algorithm, because I think that's the point of intersection between machinery and humanity. I have several issues, but I just want to start with the idea how preparedness Thailand in this regard. And beforehand, I want to share a little bit about Indonesian context. That's last year, May 2020, Indonesian government issued what's called the National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence. It's going to start by last year up until 2045 in order to celebrate 100 years of Indonesian independence. But of course, the issue is so huge, the unpreparedness of regulation, human resources, and equalities problem, and so on and so forth. I just wonder, maybe you can share with us how prepared Thais in this future vision.
Yes, thank you, Leo. Very good question. Thailand is a bit prepared. I mean, there are several groups. If we talk about the level of development of AI, and which is, by the way, a topic in computer science, and as with many other countries, we have quite a large number of computer scientists and quite a large number of teaching programs in universities where they provide degrees in computer science. And of course, one of the prominent courses or areas within those degrees are AI. So that indicates a certain level of preparedness. And we also have the Thailand Association of I don't remember the exact name, but it's the Association of Artificial Intelligence in Thailand, something like this, where they are the main professional organization, mostly consisting of computer scientists and computer engineers who are working on AI, and they are quite active. I mean, I'm following them on Facebook, and they usually come up with a series of activities. For example, they organize workshops on machine learning, deep learning, and so on. And they try to provide outreach to high school students. So students who are interested in writing codes are invited, and students can get together, presented with a challenge, give you this challenge. You spend 1, 2, or 3 days coming up with solutions to the challenge by writing up computer codes, that kind of thing. This kind of activities is organized throughout the world in order to honing the skills of computer programmers, especially when they enter the university. So at the level or on the part of the technical aspects, the computer scientists, I think Thailand seems to be doing quite well. However, what appears to be quite lacking, at least to my perception, is the kind of thinking and research on the social aspects or the ethical aspects of AI, which require collaborations between the technical side, the computer scientists, and the people from the social sciences and the humanities. I mean, there are some activities. I am leading one such activities because, I'm doing work on AI ethics, and I'm from philosophy. But, compared to the scope of the task that needs to be done, it's still at the beginning stage. So at this point, we could expand more in terms of AI ethics and the study of the social issues surrounding AI. And by the way, Thailand has proposed a guideline for AI ethics. And I think the agency involved is the Ministry of Science. They drafted a document on AI ethics guideline and proposed that document to the cabinet, to the government later in 2019. I wrote about this in one of my articles, and it was approved by the government. So that represented a milestone in the attempt to regulate or to think or to do activities on AI ethics in Thailand. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the response, Ajahn. I just want to pursue a little bit. In my understanding, my limited, I not yet have a chance to explore all the proposal of AI in the world, but I'm coming back to my own country's proposal of the national strategy. It sounds to me talking about AI is in the first place is about achievement, about development, about marketism, and so on and so forth. So I just wonder, and well, this kind of issue is like an automatic. You need to growth economically speaking, and AI is one means to come to that point. So regardless the idea of the vision of the future enhancement and so on, but very basic is about economic
Right.
yes, achievement and so on and so forth. So industrialization and so on. So how to deal with this kind of mindset?
Yeah, thank you. The equality that I mentioned obviously needs to include economic and social equality also. They are prerequisites. I mean, they cannot be neglected at all. I mean, they are the linchpin of a stable society. And yeah, it could be a challenge for social scientists, philosophers, computer scientists, people who do policy analysis for the government as to how AI could contribute to economic equality. As of now, it seems to be the other way because AI appears to be the tool of the multinational corporations like Facebook and Google. And they are using AI every day to, analyze whatever we do. So it is said that Facebook and Google know much more about me than I know about myself. Could be true. And they not only know about me, they know about everyone who's using Facebook. That kind of power seems to give kind of a lot of leverage to the multinational corporations, which could lead to more and more gaps, not only among countries, among the so-called developing and the developed world, the West and the global South, the global North and the global South, but also within a particular country itself, like in Thailand. AI could if not effectively regulated, AI could widen the already widening gap between the rich and the poor in Thailand. So it is a challenge for all who are concerned to find a way for AI to reduce this economic gap. Could be done in many ways. Could be in terms of regulations, or could be within the inner workings of AI, how AI is to be programmed in itself. We need to talk more about this with the technicians, with the programmers. But I think that is also the way toward the future, the kind of future that we would want to live in. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. In the last few minutes, I just wonder whether, Dawn, is there any issue, comments, questions from Facebook that you can share with us here? Okay. For the last minute, I want to move a little bit to philosophical, Ajahn, if you're okay with that. More philosophical. So we tend to speak about AI and imagining immediately with robotics. Well, AI, I think, is much wider, and you already mentioned in your presentation, there's a artificial general intelligence, what have human-computer integration, artificial superhuman, and so on. But when we speak about AI, people tend to anthropomorphizing AI, while AI, in fact, is larger than simply having robot. But again, I have a novel from Kazuo Ishiguro. I think you're aware of that as well, Ajahn. Clara and the Sun. Do you aware of that? Clara and the Sun, novel from Ishiguro, Kazuo Ishiguro, Nobel Prize.
I'm not
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting novel about what's called AF, artificial friend. Yeah, artificial friend. So I just want to relate this issue with what I mentioned earlier. That's the tendency to anthropomorphizing AI and taking AI as competition, as a competitor. We are Homo sapiens, and we are in contrast with Machina sapiens. So, for the sake of argument, is it in fact the manifestation of imagination of human to enslave the others?
Could be. We could organize another session just to talk about just this, because human beings have dreamed of creating a machine that not only look like us, but think like us and do things like us. So, a machine like or a human like machine. You can find that repeated many times in the literature, in the laws and the myth of many cultures. So yes, there is a risk of anthropomorphizing AI. However, those who are developing AI might think that in order for AI to be really helpful, the AI should assume some form of human-like behaviors. For example, there is a type of AI that is designed to help the elderly when they live alone. So if the AI looks like a robot or threatening robot, they cannot do the job. They must look like the kind of thing that the elderly people would want to talk to and to want to get closer to. So that is one way. It does not have to mean that by looking like human, they are posing a threat. There must be a guideline against that. Yeah, just a short answer.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ajahn Suraj, for the insightful response. And I strongly suggest for the audience to checking on Ajahn Suraj's books and articles to get even more insights. Okay, so for the audience, wherever you are, we may continue our conversation in the next session, a book talk entitled The Futures of Thailand, 2585 Buddhist Era. Today's at 1 p.m. Bangkok time, just after the break. And we have another conference started by Friday on different kind of ideas that we will have 6 parallel session topics including climate justice, civic education. And I believe there's many issues we discussed today. It's also extended in that conference as well. Civic education, dialogue and engagement, and others. So please follow up and enjoy the presentation. Thank you very much, Ajahn Suraj, and thank you very much the team for this fine session. I will close and giving back to the Chulalongkorn team. Thank you very much, Ajahn.
Thanks a lot, Leo.
Yeah.
Hope to meet you again.
Yeah, hope to meet you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.